Now it's review time, and this game, I've played it multiple times, but this is the first time in like at least 5, 6 years. And I gotta tell you, I don't know if it's the benefit of hindsight or the benefit of a Insomniac Spider-Man game, but not the best. Not the best game. I usually split up the review between like graphics, gameplay, and story. Um, so I'll start with gameplay. I think that's probably my favorite part of the game. I like that there's like some very noticeable difference between the playstyles of the black suit and the red suit, and you do have options to like choose, you know, what you want to prioritize. If you want to spend the game like just in black suit, you can. If you want to spend the game just in red suit, you can do that too, or you can switch back and forth any combination of the two. There's a lot of options, and the playstyle of both is very different. The red suit is more like acrobatic, more heavy on combos. The red suit is more, or the black suit is more on like heavy attacks, tendril attacks, that kind of stuff. It's very unique. So the playstyles of both are very different, and I really appreciate that. The web strike is probably one of my favorite thing in any of the Spider-Man games. It's just like a nice like way to string together moves. So this game is big on ground attacks, air attacks, and wall attacks, and I'm not a big fan of the wall combat, but it's nice to have like that as an option. And the web strike is really to like thread the three together. So I think that's like really cool. So you can start on the ground and you can like web strike a guy on the wall, and you'll end up doing, you know, the wall combos. Then you could web strike a guy in the air, and you'll end up doing air combos. So that's like a cool little like way to thread the three together. The camera, unfortunately, is not that helpful. Even with locking on, I feel like you're usually having a hard time finding the guy you actually want to hit, especially in a boss fight where there are multiple enemies, like goons around. Then you're gonna have a hard time finding the person you want to hit, and sometimes the camera can get way wacky and like borderline give you a seizure. The enemies, they're pretty decent. There's like a good variety of air, ground, and wall enemies. They're fine. They're not nothing. They're not really anything to write home about. The boss fights, you really have Electro, Vulture, Black Cat, and I guess Wolverine. You have them in their normal phases, and then you have them in their like Venom, symbiote phases. I like the fights the first time around for the most part, but the second time around when they're the symbiote, they're not really any different. They're just they just have a new skin, more or less. Most of their moves are even like the same. Just the way they execute them are different. So there's not a lot of creativity in the design of the symbiote villains. It's more just exterior aesthetic kind of stuff. Web swinging, I think the web swinging is pretty good. It's after playing the Insomniac once, I think they're very different, but I don't necessarily know if it's a bad way. This one requires more skill. In the Insomniac games, if you swing into a wall, Peter will just automatically like start climbing the wall and like keep his momentum. Here, if you hit a wall, you've hit a wall, and you're gonna slow down a lot. So there's a lot more precision to this swinging. And they also have tokens in the game that level you up, and the higher level you get, the faster you're swinging. So that's useful, and I like the tokens. There's like 1,000 of them or something like that. That's too many tokens, but they're also there to kind of like tutorialize the web swinging, because you're gonna have to like be precise in your swinging, in your wall crawling, etc., to get those tokens. So that's kind of a nice like way to sneak in a tutorial. There's too many of them, but it's a nice way. But I do like the web swinging. You don't stick to buildings either, technically. Like, even if you're swinging between buildings, I doubt the web is hitting a building. Like, if you turn the camera around, it's probably just in the air. But it's also, the game also doesn't let you like swing. Like, if you're just like in the air above the buildings and there's nothing to swing to, it's not going to let you swing. So I don't mind that. I know a lot of people are like purist about like the webs have to attach to something, and like, as long as you're not able to swing on nothing, then I'm kind of cool with it technically not attaching to anything. Michael Vaughn, not a good Spider-Man. So yeah, I think the gameplay is pretty solid. I didn't really have a bad time with most of it. Um, the camera is really the only thing that I have issues with in the game. They have a counter system, but like you don't really have to use it. And it's not really good enough to warrant me using it. Okay, so that's the gameplay. I'm gonna move on to, I guess, graphics. The game looks good. Um, does this spit me back in the game or no? I doubt it does. The game looks good for its time. You can definitely tell it's more empty, but it was like 2008, 2009, something like that. So my expectations aren't too high for how this game is going to look. At the time when I played it, I definitely didn't have an issue with it. I think it looks better than Spider-Man 3, but maybe that's not a high bar. Maybe that's not a high bar. Um, it looks good. I can't really complain about it. Some of the character models are a little weird from time. Sometimes Spider-Man has like a rubber neck. His neck is like too long for his body. But you know, it is what it is. There's some glitches that I didn't really notice the first time I was playing through, but in this game, there's like been like some weird ones, like duplicates of enemy types. Does this fit me right at the beginning of the game? Oh, is this how this works? It just restarts the game, I guess. But whatever. I think I'll just go on the guide. It doesn't really stop it. Yeah, I think that's it. I don't know. I don't really have much to talk about graphically. The game looks fine. Oh, I guess this is as good a place as... Nah, we'll talk about it in story. Story. I think it's probably the weakest part of this game. It's not great. They shoot for a high mark. I'll start with the things that I like. I like that Venom, the symbiote, is kind of like taking over the city, and there are stages. Like, the city will change. It'll start off, and it's like fall in New York. Before the symbiotes really take over. It's like fall in New York, which is an aesthetic of New York we don't really see in Spider-Man games. I don't think we've ever seen... Well, I guess in the newer ones. At the time, we'd never seen like anything that's not just like summer in New York. So it was cool to see... It was cool to see just autumn. Like, you know, the grass or the leaves are brown and whatever red or whatever colorful. It was a nice, like, a change of pace for the city. But then you get to see a transition as the symbiotes take over. You get to see, like, you know, there are more, like, enemies on the street. There are, like, shields on the street setting up quarantine zones. And then, like, the symbiotes really take over and the buildings, like, have black goo on them. And, like, there are areas that are, like, totally taken over by symbiotes. That's, like, a really cool idea. And I like that a lot. I think that was really cool. I think it could have been executed better. And the way I think it could have been executed better is having side missions that would really kind of flesh out like the civilian point of view of the changes in the city. For example, at the beginning of the game, like you are pretty much in this tutorial phase where you're like fighting like gangs. And a lot of the side missions, like all of the side missions, boil down to take out 100 goons, web strike 100 goons, stop 5 crimes. They're not anything of note. What I think would have been cool is if you could have gotten, if there could have been missions where you'd gotten to know or become acquaintance with like some of the gang members, and then when you get to the end of the game, like when you get to the fully symbiote version of the game, you have another side mission where you like see their perspective and you can like gain like a camaraderie with a shared purpose. Like I think that would have been cool to like see like individuals have like a change of like heart as, you know, we all have a common enemy. I think that would have been cool to like really flesh out like this change in New York, because really all we see is an aesthetic change of the city, not a people level. So I think that would have been cool. Like the side missions are really the weakest part of this game. They're like totally unnecessary. It's like save 100 civilians. Well, I would rather do a mission where it's like has a specific set piece. There's like a story involved with it, and you're saving like 30 civilians or something like that. Like something's happened, you've stopped it, versus just like running around the city. The game points out a civilian who needs help, and then you save them, and you repeat that 100 times. I don't think that's very fun. The main story is fine too. I don't think they fleshed it out enough. I would have liked to. I don't know. The voice acting isn't that great. The main Spider-Man guy isn't that great, so it's hard to like connect even with this Spider-Man. Like he's more annoying than like even funny or like endearing. And I also get a sense from his character that like he doesn't necessarily care about people. He likes doing it for the action versus the like helping people or the responsibility. So I don't know if this was even a good representation of Spider-Man in this story, and that kind of really hurts when you're trying to connect to the story, but you can't really connect to the main character. So that was like a big issue for me. I think this game wanted to explore a lot, and I think this game was very ambitious. Unfortunately, it just didn't put in the work to like meet those ambitions. It was like lofty ideas, but didn't really do much with the execution. I don't know if it was like they didn't have enough time. I don't know what it was, but there was just not enough there. That's really all I wanted to talk about. It was cool to have like Wolverine, Moon Knight, Luke Cage, Black Cat, Rhino, Vulture, Electro as like people who could come in and help you. But even then, it's like it's not that useful. You can call them in from time to time, but like they're not big outside of their own missions. They're not like really crucial parts of the game. You don't even really need them in the game, to be honest with you, as like allies. It's cool to have, but not very useful. I think I've covered most of it. Yeah, I don't know. I think I've covered most of it. The Stark building is ugly as hell. I don't know why he would build a building that ugly, but he's got a ugly Stark tower in there. Yeah, that's about it. That's about it. I wouldn't recommend. I don't know if I would recommend getting this game. I mean, if you're like a big Spider-Man fan and you're like looking to play anything with Spider-Man in, like this isn't the worst Spider-Man game by far. It's just like I don't know. It's kind of fallen under its own crown. I don't know. Its crown was too heavy. Its ideas were too heavy, and it couldn't really execute them. It's just repetitive missions, and like there would be points in the game where you would have a main mission to evacuate civilians, and then immediately after that mission, it would be a mission telling you to do that 2 more times. It's just like it gets very annoying. At a certain point, you're like, I just did this, and now I have to do it 2 more times as a side mission, but I have to do it. Like I don't know, seems kind of pointless. Seems kind of repetitive, and they didn't have much to do. Yeah, I guess that's a good wrapping point. If you want to get this game, like, it's not the worst Spider-Man game. I don't know how you get it now. I had to, like, borrow a friend's Xbox and break out my old Xbox 360 and break out my old copy of the game to even play it again. But yeah, as an older individual, like, as somebody in their late 20s at this point, I've seen this. There's been better Spider-Man games out there. If you want a better Spider-Man game, I'd recommend getting the Insomniac games. Even like the first Amazing Spider-Man game, because the story here, it's just not there. The side missions, it's just not there. It looks good. The gameplay is good. The transition of the city is great. But the story, the narrative is just not there. It doesn't keep attention. It doesn't really have the heart of a Spider-Man story. And it just has Venom. Venom was big after the Spider-Man 3, I guess. So people were just jumping on the Venom train. But this one doesn't really do much to even explore the dynamic between Peter and Venom. So it's just like, not good enough. I don't know. I don't think I'll ever play this game again. I mean, there's good stuff in here, but it's just overall, it's just not a great game. I wouldn't really recommend it unless you're like desperate to play a Spider-Man game, and I guess a vintage game at this point. This game's like 15 years old, so could have been better. That's my review. If you want to tell me what your thoughts on the game were, feel free to leave them below in the comments. If you're just watching the review, I got the whole walkthrough on the channel, so feel free to check that out. I also got other Spider-Man stuff on the channel and other game stuff on the channel too, if you want to check that out. This has been 15 Minutes Game. If you want to leave a like, God forbid, subscribe, you can. You don't have to if you don't want to, but I really appreciate it if you do. Hope to see you on another stream, video, whatever I do. Thank you guys for watching. Bye.